It no matter where you come from, you can feel the selection. Global African connection, bringing you musical satisfaction. With the news and the views, and you know it's real connection.
It is important for us to know what has happened in the past in order for us to appreciate our culture and contribution to the world. Africans are spread across the world today, but how we got to the places we are in today have their own unique history that all Africans should know about. This time, we're going over to the great Africans from Jamaica, a small island with a massive reputation. The Jamaican Maroons defeated the British Army twice, gave the reggae musical style to the world, and made Dada dreadlocks international, among many other things. Do you know that more artists from Jamaica have sung about Africa than possibly the whole of the African continent put together? To prove me wrong, produce your statistics. I've got mine. Anyway, this time we're going to Jamaica. Music coming from the man himself, that's Mr. Johnny Clark, and the track is called African People from the album entitled Dreader Than Dread.
They took us away from our father's land and brought us to slave on their wicked land. They made us work all day and night with no freedom and no rights. With no freedom and no rights. To our African people, to our African tribe, to our African people, and know your culture. They took away our native tongue and taught their English to our young and old. But some old day we will overcome when Jah shall redeem us. When Jah shall redeem us. So to
yeah, music coming from the Africans in Jamaica. Coming from the man himself, Mr. Johnny Clark. And the track is called African People. Beautiful people.
African tribe. They took us away from our father's land and brought us to stay on their wicked land. They made us work all day and night with no freedom and no rights. With no freedom.
Okay, we'll be hearing more from Mr. Freddy Macha as he tells us more about himself. He may play a track or two. You never know unless you listen, so keep it locked. The Global African Connection with me, Ayo Badejo.
Yes, my virgin. This is your dub master Ras Kimono. Anytime I'm in London, I listen to Global African Connection.
Looking at your biography here, you actually did travel around the world. When first did you get out of Tanzania, and how did your journey around the world start?
When I was a journalist, I used to study French in the evening because I realized that Africans, they don't want to speak English. So I learned I'm going to learn French, and I was aiming to go to Paris because I heard so much about Paris being a center of culture. There's different people. That was my aim. But it didn't happen that way. That was the only plan I had, and it didn't happen that way. When we formed Sayari, we toured around the country, and then we toured, we had a tour in Scandinavian countries. There was a festival in Oslo in 1984, the theater festival. So we toured Norway, then we went to Denmark, and then we went to Sweden, and then the tour was finished. But then we didn't want to go back to the same problems, because at that time Tanzania was going some very hard period after the war against Idi Amin. The country had so many problems financially. You couldn't even buy a soap. You can't get toilet paper in the shop. There was queues for rice. So a scary place to live. And if you are young, I was about 26, 27, around that age, you either had to take over the place or do nothing. And some of our lyrics were censored. We censored our lyrics because we were too scared. So we decided to stay in Europe. I went to Germany, and I lived in Germany. I started to perform on the circuit as a solo. And in Germany, I worked and published my own poems called Peppers, Peppers, Peppers. It was talking about the problems in Africa. And then after we toured, some of us went to school. After 3 years, I was fed up. I wanted to come to London because I heard London was buzzing. I mean, I was working as a freelance journalist at the same time, and I interviewed Linton Kwesi when he came to Germany. He was touring, I think it was in a town called Duisburg. I saw him. He gave me 5 minutes. I asked him a few questions. I asked him why he was not singing in proper English. At that time, I didn't understand patois. Mm-hmm. So he said to me, patois is a language just like Swahili, Yoruba, or Zulu. It's just a language. I didn't know why he was using patois, because we don't know these things. I mean, I had Bob Marley's music. I thought Bob Marley was singing that way because maybe Bob Marley didn't go to school. So he was singing that wrong English. Yeah. Wrong English. So it was another aspect of my learning. So Linton told me about the patois. And when I came to London, eventually, I came to a book fair. 1987, I came to a book fair to publicize my book of poetry. And here I met so many people in London. But I came a few weeks, just I think 2 weeks, and went back to Germany. And I was starting getting fed up staying in Europe. So I was traveling around, went to Holland, Switzerland. I was touring, playing a lot in festivals, third world festivals, African festivals. I think in the 80s, there was a big upsurge of Africa. And there was the Live Ed thing as well, Live Ed concert. Yeah. And eventually I went to Brazil. How did I go to Brazil? My wife was a diplomat at the time, and she got transferred there to Brazil. And I also got a chance to be an extra in a movie, an American movie called Wild Orchid. So I was in Rio and this was happening. And within that Rio circle, I found that Africans there are completely unknown. Nobody knows about Africa. Brazilians say themselves on television, it's a very racist country. I mean, the racism in Brazil is amazing because it's hidden. There's no information. And the media is always highlighting blondes. It's always highlighting America. So, but there's that love and hate thing. Mm. And as an African, when I came to Rio, I was shocked that people know nothing about Africa. Mm. I wanted to learn Brazilian music because it's very fascinating. The chords, the changes. And, I found that people want to learn from me. So what I was doing was teaching Swahili, teaching drumming, teaching, African dance, and then learning the music, learning the chords. But then I found that Swahili was not as important to them as Yoruba. And I met a lot of black Brazilians who were really into Yoruba culture. And this was a very interesting period for me because one of my gurus there, I was learning Latin American drumming. He's a very old, well-traveled Brazilian guy called Abiodun. He was that time in his 60s. He was really getting to be senile. But he was a polyglot. He was speaking various languages. He spoke Yoruba, he spoke French, German. He knew a bit of Arabic. He was very, very good. He was my student, I was his teacher. He was teaching me and I was teaching him. So he was learning, I was teaching African rhythms. And I remember once we were doing this rhythm, this Malombo rhythm. This is from South Africa called Malombo. It's taken from Philip Tabane. Philip Tabane is a South African musician who was underground in South Africa. He was kind of cult musician. He didn't become famous because his style, his way of working was very not commercial, but is respecting the jazz circles. And Philip Tabane used a lot of malombo drums. The big drums, they're like huge. For the Western people, they will think of kodo drums from Japan. These are big drums. You get like 12 feet high down to 6 inches on the floor. This is a kind of very, very good drum. So the guy was drumming and is going up and down the stage. And when I was talking to Abiodun about his drums, he said, but this is something I've heard about the drums in the Yoruba country. If the drummers got this and that. So you relate things with Nigeria. And it was a very interesting discussion. So in Brazil, I found that there are a lot of people keen to know about Africa, but there's no access. So that link was missing. And a lot of black Brazilians like to have a link, but not in Rio, because I lived in Rio for 4 years. And the Rio was basically for me a learning process. I was in a music school. And then eventually I was in a band. Young people. They're playing reggae, Afro, and the funk. And these guys wanted to play a lot of reggae music, but they didn't know anything about reggae. They thought reggae from UB40, the ska thing, chang, chang. Red wine. I said to them, this is like a second, third copy of the real thing. So if you want to know reggae, you got to listen to Nyabingi. You got to listen to the Rasta music. Pray Bob Marley, you know. When the Whalers started, they used to do Nyabingi. Chant them down. These things I was showing them. So where the reggae comes from. So there was a lot of interchange between me and the Brazilians. There was always something. They were teaching me something, I'm teaching them something. And I came to learn samba. But the thing that really inspired me was the capoeira. Now, capoeira is a Brazilian martial arts and dance, which was developed by Africans in Brazil. The origins of capoeira go back to slavery. Slaves, when they came from, especially from the Angola, Congo, Nigeria, and some of the Mandinka-speaking West African countries, they took with them some of the cultures, things, values they took with them. There was a fight developed by the Angolans called Batuque. It's just a kicking fight. They kick with the legs and they'll play drums. And that's how they used to relax after working in the slavery farms. Now, because the Portuguese slave owners were very domineering, they'll monitor their movements, even when the African slaves were relaxing. So they were watching what they were doing. So because they were practicing these kicks and it was looking very vicious, they started to arrest them and beat them up. So what they did, they changed the way they were practicing. They started to put other things in the movements. They started to develop music. So with the berimbau, they started to develop lyrics, which are kind of warning if the slave owners are coming. They start to put hands, acrobatics. But in the first 300 years, from say 15th century up to 18th century, capoeira was developed in Brazil to fight against slavery.
Okay.
Fighting against slavery, the main leader is called Zumbi. Zumbi can compare to any kind of leaders in the 20th century, like Marcus Garvey or Lumumba, all these great leaders who fought for freedom of black people. Zumbi was a capoeirista, and he established quilombos. These are liberated areas where the white people could not go. The quilombos were regarded as a free place. Just like you had Sierra Leone, or places were created for free slaves.
Okay.
Yeah, free town. But this was basically liberated zones, and no white person could go there. And the blacks would run out there to hide. The quilombos were very big areas. And
so it's just like the hills in Jamaica where the Maroons were.
Exactly. Okay. Exactly. Similar. Zumbi was so powerful and feared. He made capoeira into a really big way of fighting. And the capoeira was used actually before that. But actually what it was fighting was you're fighting for survival. It kept the Brazilians going. As you know, the population of Africans abroad is bigger in Brazil than anywhere else.
Yeah.
And the main area was actually Bahia. So When I moved from Rio to Bahia, for me, was a big change in my life, because in Bahia, when I came, was not like Rio. When I say I'm from Africa, they want to know where. When I say Tanzania, they say Zanzibar. They know all these towns. They know about Igbo land. They know about Yoruba land. They know about Mandinka. They know different things, and they're very interested in Rasta. They know about the origins of Rasta. They know about St. Louis, the blues. They're very conscious, and they're very proud.
This is in Bahia.
In Bahia, in North Brazil. So I lived in Bahia. That's the last years of my life in Brazil spent in Bahia. Of course, I traveled to other countries like Paraguay, and I went to other places. But this Bahia was a development. My capoeira really grew up there, nourished there. And now capoeira is being legalized now for the last 30 years because of a man called Bimba, and an old man called, another one called, a blind guy called Bashkinya. All these people were the ones who popularized capoeira and made it into a kind of established sport. It's a very healthy sport. And so that was Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
But from Brazil, I also learned other things apart from music and capoeira, was massage. And when I was doing my album, I got into problems financial because of there was a crisis in 1992. Everybody was affected. Big people, small businessmen. I had a small business myself, and I was affected because my money was taken from the bank. I didn't have any resources. We didn't have work. I started to sell my things. So the alternative for me was to abandon my project because I was recording my album. And I did other things. So to do other things instead of killing myself, I had to study massage. That's how I got into massage, into healing. And I went to Canada. I got to apply for school in Canada to do reflexology. And I ended up in Ottawa, where I was doing the course. At the same time, I was finishing my album there.
This was your first album?
Yeah, this was my main first album. It was delayed because of all these things. Mm-hmm. Delayed from 1991 to 1995. That's when I finished. It was called Kitoto. This was a mixture of music and music, dance music and poetry.
This is the Radical speaking, and I always tune into IO on the Global African Connection on Fusion 107.3 FM. Yeah. Don't miss it.
Listening to one of your tracks, Song of Ethiopia. A very heavy track. What inspired you to write that track?
Song of Ethiopia was written in the mid-80s when I first came to Europe. There was a live Ed concert here by Bob Geldof. Bob Geldof is a very conscious Irish guy, a musician with a conscience. It's a very good thing he did. That is okay for them to come together and do something for Africa. But the point is the whole philosophy about helping. I was told when I was young that if somebody is hungry and they want fish, don't give him a fish, because with the fish finish, he's going to come back again. The best thing is to just give him something to go and fish so he can get the fish himself. And that is what with Africans, is that we cannot really live depending on aid. And that has been the theme of most of our leaders, from Nkrumah to Nyerere to Babu. All those leaders have been saying about that, trying to break. And I had Ngugi wa Thiong'o, a Kenyan writer, talking about charity bags will never help us to develop. And most people are making their name, building their names on African hardships. I think that's the thing I caught from Ngugi. Somebody's suffering and you're making a name, you're making an album. Like Paul Simon went and did that Graceland album, which was good. He got some job from some musicians. But the thing was also he was building his own image as a folk singer, and he came out again. So when I heard Ngugi talking, plus the fact that the charity thing was going on, and I hear constantly in the media about Africans fighting constantly with weapons. And then the other thing, when I go to schools here, kids don't know history. They don't know how Africa was invaded. They don't know the Berlin Conference. They don't know Bismarck, slavery, why slaves scattered all over the world, these spheres of influence, all these things, how do they happen? So I thought I'd write a good tune. And whenever I play this tune, I see people in tears in the audience. People are so embarrassed sometimes. Some of them close their eyes, or they leave the room, or all kind of reactions when I play this tune. So I don't play often. I play for special occasions only.
Oh, can you give us an acoustic rendition of it?
It's a very long tune. One moon, one soul, one life, Ethiopia, Ethiopia. One moon, one soul, one life, Rwanda, Rwanda. Ngatala, 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 ngatala. I have a sad story to tell. Rwanda, you're the story everywhere. Every time you hear about Africa, it's the same old thing of desolation, misery. Desolation and misery in Africa means desolation in the third world. A picture of gloom and doom in the 20th century.
For the latest and best African music,
I have a sad story to tell. Rwanda, you're the news everywhere. Just like Ethiopia, Somalia, Soweto, Biafra years back. Every time you hear about Africa, it's the same old thing of starvation, desolation, misery, and civil disorder. Genocide and disorder in Rwanda means hunger in Africa, means desolation in the third world. A picture of gloom and doom in the 20th century. Hunger campaigns all over the world. Sensational media and benefit concerts. Africans portrayed as hopeless, helpless creatures, desiring, needing, wanting, helplessly charity bags of their traditional masters. Showbiz people, politicians and humanitarians, building their names and images on Africa's hardships. Who made Africa hungry? Who
Who made Africa disorderly? Who gave and gives guns to Africans? Who sells weapons to the world's poor? Who? Wafika miaka mingi sasa tunateseka. Lumumba, Mandela, Biko, you want me, 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 yeah. Yeah, waka. We were alright before they came, minding our own business. Before they sat at the Berlin Conference in 1884, chaired by Emperor Otto von Bismarck. Having spent 300 years of research, slavery and exploration, through Christopher Columbus, Magellan and Vasco da Gama, Cecil Rhodes, Big Grant, H.M. Stanley and David Livingstone, to explore, discover, pave the way for future disintegration and so-called civilization. As if there was no civilization. And sending missionaries for mental preparation and spiritual conquer. Through the Bible in one hand, the guns in the other. At Berlin 1884, the scramble for Africa became official. Led by Germany, Britain, France, Belgium, etc. To divide the piece of cake. Balkanize Africa. Divide and rule. Balkanize Africa. Divide Cameroon and Nigeria, which is to be one. Divide Maasai in Kenya and Tanzania, which is to be one. Divide Senegal and Gambia, which is to be called Senegambia. And divide again Zambia and Zimbabwe. Nyasalam. Call it North and South Rhodesia, as a tribute to Mr. Cecil Rhodes. Cecil a man, Cecil the great settler, pioneer of the great empire. What tribes which are not supposed to be together in divided territories for convenience. as spheres of influence. For example, Tutsis and Hutus in Rwanda and Burundi. It didn't matter whether they hated each other or that they will kill each other 100 years later. Simple. Spheres of influence. And in Congo, which used to become so bloody years later, through the bloody murder of Patrice Lumumba, Pierre Mulele, Marien Ngouabi, Belgians took Congo, Leopoldville, now Kinshasa. The French took Congo, Brazzaville. Divide and rule. Sharing the piece of cake that has since become so tasteless. Africa still suffers. Her tears still flow in waters of painful liquid confusion. Slaves scattered all over the world have become second-class Africans in the USA, Latin America, the Caribbean, and Europe. Some say it happened a long time ago, but this is not just 6 years. This is a 500 years Holocaust, unfinished, still on, changing faces, norms and forms. Reinvented before our very eyes, in new ways, megaforms, multiforms.
Yes, my virgin. This is your dub master Raskimono. Anytime I'm in London, I listen to Global African Connection.
Yeah, that was a beautiful song put together by Mr. Freddy Macha called Song of Ethiopia. And you can listen to the full track. It's track 6 on the Constipation album. It's quite a long track. It's about 15 minutes, but it's 15 minutes of education and good music to go with it. We are a very ancient people. Our history goes beyond the beginning of time. Today we read about the ancient Egyptians, the ancient Ethiopians, but a lot of our people don't realize that this is our story. We were here before anyone else. That is before Adam. That is before Eve. That is before the Greeks. That is before the Romans. That is before the Arabs. That is before the Indians. We were here. And then we should spend more time knowing our history, knowing our own story from our own point of view. Scholars like Dr. Sheikh Anta Diop of Senegal, Dr. John Henry Clark, Drusilla Donji Houston, Ashra Kwesi, Tony Browder, Merira Kwesi, amongst many more, have worked hard to preserve our history. So it's our duty to support their work by buying their books, their videos, reading them, and teaching its contents. once we have a good understanding of what it is, especially to our children. Okay, now we're going over to the biblical land of Punt, that's Somalia, in the Horn of Africa, one of the places that was heavily invaded by the Arabs during the spread of Islam. You can see it from the high percentage of the mixed Arab African population. The West has helped to turn Somalia into what it is today, a perpetual war zone. I read the other day that most of the so-called pirates were actually protesting against the dumping of toxic waste and the illegal fishing in Somalia waters by Western and Eastern countries, taking advantage of the lack of governance, the chaos in the country. This is music coming from Somalian-born, Denmark-based Miriam Mossal with a track called Somali Udida Seb, which in English means Somalia, don't shame yourself.
Somalia Udida Aib, Naftina Udida Aib, Somalia Udida Aib, Naftina Udida Aib. dulkeena dabeecadiisa micnaa daadku dhex qado labada webi ee dureera dalagaci dow wanaagsan abuurka ku daadi weeyo khayraadka ka doona weeye siduu geelu hawdu daaqo laguna u diinaahiyeyso danyarteena eegto siday diibtuugu taalo labadu isdaabooli waayo dunidu waynagu la yaabtay dunidu waynagu la yaabtay way dadiyo udadala nabad Somali udida aib naftina udida aib Somali udida aib naftina udida aib Allah 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 dulkeena dabeecadiisa dabayshiyo cimiiladiisa badwaynta dhanee ku dayran kalluunka dabaalanaya dubaxadu siday u taalo siday macdantu dangiigto siduu arigu dareero uga dhaysta wanaysa la yaabtay dunidu waynagu la yaabtay way dadiyo udadala nabad Somali udida aib naftina udida aib 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 Allah 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 Allah
Yeah, that was music coming from the Somalian-born singer. That's Miriam Mossal. And she's singing about the conditions that exist in that African country at the moment. Again, it goes back to what I said. Africans are fighting one another over a belief system that was enforced on us. I really, hope that, we get things right and not wait for people to wipe us out before we understand what is going on in the real world. Anyway, let's hear more from Mr. Freddy Macha.
This is the Radical speaking, and I always tune into IO on the Global African Connection on Fusion 107.3 FM. Yeah. Don't miss it.
One thing you've mentioned a lot in the interview is the importance of language. Most especially, you mentioned the importance of African parents speaking African languages to their children. How important is that? And what do you have to say about this excuse that people give that if you speak African language to your child, the child won't be bright enough or will get them confused and things like that?
Exactly. I think Africans are the only race I've seen abroad, outside their country, that doesn't speak their own language to their children. If a parent is married to another race, it's kind of understandable because the conflict there. But it's two parents from the same culture speaking the same language, but they still don't speak the same language to their kids. They speak, say, German or French or English to their children, but not. They don't teach them their own language. So when the kids grow up, you find a grown-up African born here, and they can't speak not a single word, not even courtesies, not even hello, thank you, bye-bye. This is a big problem. I've had these comments when people come here and they hear me speaking Swahili to my children, and they answer in English, of course, because English is the main language, but they understand what I'm saying. And they say, oh, your children are going to get confused if you speak with them like that. So I said to them, if they're getting confused, why don't Spanish people don't get confused, Turkish don't get confused, Pakistani don't get confused? Why are we the only ones who get confused? Every person speaks various languages in Africa. I think every African speaks an average of 2 or 3 languages. Everybody get a tribe language, get the national language, which is Wolof or Swahili or Hausa. And then they have the main foreign languages, English, Portuguese, French or Spanish or Arabic. And it's quite normal for us. It's just normal. And kids adapt to a new language quite quicker than any other. But this, actually, having said all that, I think this shows how colonized we become to this point, and it's not changing. People think that we colonized when the whites came to Africa, but the effects of colonialism is still there. We've got a big problem with inferiority complex. And you think speaking English or in a foreign language is development. English is just a language. It just happened to be a very commercial language owned by very rich cultures. Americans and English people have problems learning other languages. You find all over the world, you go in foreign countries, you find Germans, Scandinavians, Japanese learning local languages, but the only people who find difficulties is British English speaking and Americans. So there's no reason why Africans should have this problem with their children and have to fight this constantly here with my guests. Even from my own country come here, I said to them, please speak Swahili to my kids. Greet them and then speak English, whatever you want to speak, but have this habit, because it's a language, and a language is the soul of a culture. And if we don't do that, our generation is going to get lost. So we think we're here because we came here for the economic development or educational development, but if the kids don't have any cultural identity in terms of language, then we're really doing a bad service to the future, a very bad service.
What word of advice, what words of wisdom do you have for African people?
As a musician and an artist, I always have a message in my music. I'm always talking through my music. By speaking like this in a few words, I would say that things are changing in Africa. There's a lot of good things coming out as well. Technology is catching up. There's a lot of access to information. So people cannot say they don't have information, but still the culture of reading and getting information is not widespread. So that is very important. When I first came to Europe, I was so shocked to see everybody in the train reading. which is something I used to do in Tanzania in the early 80s. And I remember reading in a bar, and one of the waitresses says to me, "Freddy, you're going mad now. You're reading in a bar." And there was an article about it. So the culture of reading and understanding, everything started from information. So the fact that information is so accessible at the moment, Africans should really utilize it. There's the problem of survival. We can say that because we are making ends meet, there's no time. But if you don't know where you're going, there's no need to just stuff yourself with food or with money if you don't know where you're going. Otherwise, you can end up the way we were as well as. So that's the main message, really. Get education, get educated.
So are you working on anything at the moment?
Yes.
What things have you got in the pipeline?
Yes, on a performance level, I'm constantly performing. So I'm playing my play, the cabaret, the news, no news. And I'm also doing my poetry performance all the time throughout the circuit. Sax, S-A-K-S, published an anthology of short stories 3 years ago. Called Calling Sydney Poiter and Other Stories, and there's one story of mine, and now they're going to publish a book of mine. It's going to be just 2 of us, me and a writer from Nigeria called Chris Abani. Chris Abani is based in Los Angeles at the moment. And then the second thing I'm doing is a follow-up to the album Constipation, which has been getting very good comments from other people. So I'm going to the studio soon and start to work on it. A new CD, yeah.
And for some of our listeners who are working with children, or who are teachers or educators, or even musicians who want training in the instrumentation or training in massage, how can people get in touch with you?
I have a website. My website is www.author, that's AUTHOR, author is a writer, .co.uk/Macha, MACHA. And my website, you can tell a lot of information about me, or they can email me on fmacha@yahoo.com, and from there we can take it from there, fmacha@yahoo.com.
Okay, thank you very much for giving us the time to talk to you, and hopefully we shall get you back into the studio again.
Thank you, Ayo.
Yes, my virgin. This is your dub master Raskimono. Anytime I'm in London, I listen to Global African Connection.
Wow, brother Freddy Macha is a spokesman, and he brought his point across very well. Yeah, we thank brother Freddy Macha for giving us the opportunity to speak to him. You can support him by supporting his music, supporting his work, and check out the websites he's giving out. Okay, this time we're going over to the Africans in Cuba. They've single-handedly put the Yoruba belief system on the world map, along with Brazil and Trinidad. This is music coming from Papi Oviedo from the CD En Centro Entre Soneros. This track is called En El Monte and was released in 1997 on the Stance record label. If you're just tuning in, you are listening to the Global African Connection with me, Ayo Badejo.
Que yo me voy para allá, que yo
was beautiful music coming from the Africans in Cuba. Okay, this time we're going back to West Africa. Music coming from the man, that's Mr. Manu Dibango. Born Emmanuel Dibango Njoke on the 12th of December 1933. He is a master saxophonist and a vibraphone player. He is best remembered for the Afrobeat track Makossa. He has collaborated with the likes of Fela Kuti, Herbie Hancock, and many others. He was made the UNESCO Artist of Peace in the year 2004. This track is called Sun Explosion, and that is exactly what is causing the planet to warm up. Yeah, that was fantastic music coming from the man himself. That's Mr. Manu Dibango. He's based in Paris, and he's got, loads and loads of fantastic albums there that you can pick up. Jazzy, Afrobeat, you name it, he's there. He's the man. Okay, this time we're going over to Ghana. This is music coming from Mr. Agayaku, and this track is called Inyami Yodo. And this is coming from the land that produced the great, mighty Kwame Nkrumah, the African father of Pan-Africanism. And when I said the African father, I'm saying that to mean that the idea of Pan-Africanism did not actually start on the continent. It started with Africans outside once they were taken into slavery. But Nkrumah was one of the champions of that ideology on the continent. Yeah, this is music coming from Ghana. Yeah, I think it's been a fantastic 2 hour. It's funny how time flies, as they say when you're having fun. I can't believe it's 2 hours already. Anyway, I will be with you again soon. Make sure you keep yourself educated, keep yourself informed. There are a lot of things happening in the world at the moment. Having an idea of what is going on means that you may stand a better chance of not falling into the traps that have been set. And always pray to the ancestors who have always guided us for thousands upon thousands of years to guide us from the calamity that we seem to be facing once again from people who surround us. The sad truth is nobody respects Africans, and part of the reason is because Africans do not respect themselves. Let's love ourselves, let's respect ourselves, let's make our continent the best continent in the world, and let us control our resources by any means necessary. It is a shame that the country that is the richest in terms of mineral resources inhabit the poorest people. It doesn't make sense. But I know we can do better. All we need to do is understand how the world works and see how we can apply it to push forward our own interest. Anyway, have a nice week, and I shall be with you soon. Music coming from Ghana.
Baby, I want to know. I know what I'm saying. Why? I am Ibrani. So don't me. It's me do you. Medo